I'm going to jump on into the draft right here. Ban's going through very quickly right now. A lot of those priority picks gone. The Varus is up and available, though. Gala's been pretty good on it, and it has been a B1 a lot recently.
Nefiria is also available. Some teams have been dropping it completely, even when it's available. None of the champions that you could easily take into Nefiria, like the Pompey, are actually available to counter it. But I think teams are just less comfortable with putting their jungler, especially if they are in a normal facilitative role for the strength of the team, and depending on what other champions you're drafting alongside it. For example, if this Taliyah is locked in for ThunderTalk, Nefiria doesn't really make most sense because you want to pick something that will set up the Taliyah to guarantee the seismic shove combo, right? So normally Vi would be a great pairing here. Not available. Xin Zhao probably the next best answer.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of the Xin Zhao popping up at the moment. Can also pair it alongside the Sejuani if you want just a little bit of extra tankiness to get yourself into the late game. Either of those pickups have been looking fine recently. But also, you can just pivot and go somewhere else at the moment. You do know what the top matchup is going to be. Can potentially just take something into it, and is going to be the Ambessa locked in right here for Hoya. Has a fine matchup into the Scion and can get into the late game. We'll have to see what kind of squishy champions it has to try be chasing around during the team fight. IG right now are just going to grab themselves this Xin Zhao. I'd be very surprised if you don't want to lock this one in. In terms of those top tier of junglers, it really has been those two. The only other one that's been popping up quite a lot is the Skarner. Jiejie had a good performance on it yesterday. It is one of the better picks for him.
Yeah. IG's still going to take their time in deciding what jungle pick they want for Jiejie. Immediately locking down a control mage to match against SeTab's Taliyah.
Yeah.
Seems like Xin Zhao is still the best pick, and IG have the core of a pretty damn solid front line. And even though Xin Zhao is not necessarily a tank, against most long-range compositions, which seems to be dominating the metagame recently, very powerful with that Crescent Guard, because you can just completely neutralize any bit of that late-game burst from long distance away. You can completely mitigate a whole hyper carry trying to find that first kill in a fight.
Absolutely, we've seen a lot of Misfortunes use the full bullet time into the Crescent Guard, get absolutely nothing from it. Not going to happen in this game. It is going to be the Kai'Sa locked in right here. A little bit of a dive composition beginning to take shape right here for ThunderTalk. I was actually wondering if we might get the similar sort of thing out of IG, because it works pretty well alongside things like the Xin Zhao. I think the MF is still going to look pretty attractive here to IG. Gala had a pretty good game on it yesterday, and in fact, ThunderTalk, yeah, they recognize that. Get rid of it.
Yeah. Pantheon is looking better and better here for ThunderTalk when I look at what kind of champions they've already drafted together, because Taliyah would like some setup. Ambessa would like some setup. Kai'Sa just wants CC being put into the kit, and IG immediately recognize, hey, you know what? What's the skirmisher that's still available that would be nice with this composition? Immediately banned. So now, looking down the list of skirmishers that have on-demand CC, there's not that much left, Bloxer.
No, you're beginning to get into the realms of looking towards the slightly tankier versions of this, the Skarner, the Sejuani. I think those are still going to be potentially quite attractive options. Right now, ThunderTalk very much going to be focusing out onto Gala, making sure that he doesn't have a lot of the best picks. I'm shocked that we've seen a Varus get all the way through to second round bans. It's often been one of the first pickups. If you don't grab it B1, it's often going to be an R1 pick, so that one going straight through. Wouldn't be surprised if IG here want to take out another one of these heavy attack junglers. Yeah, the Sejuani going to go off of the board right here. So either you want to get very aggressive right here, grab yourself something like the Lilia or the Nefiria, or the Skarner really is the last remaining one of these big tanky jungle pickups that you can really play.
Yeah, I mean, the on-demand CC from Impale would be great, but in terms of early skirmishes, Skarner is nowhere near as powerful as Xin Zhao, especially with all the nerfs that Riot has, you know, given the Scorpion. After its heyday of being the premier jungler, being permabanned in pretty much every single game. Now that it's locked in for Beichuan, I want to point out already that ThunderTalk not necessarily having priority in a lot of these lanes. Scion can kind of, you know, hold its own against the Ambessa, but when you look at Kai'Sa being blind picked by ThunderTalk, IG, I imagine, you have the means of being able to pick a strong laning duo here. Maybe it's just Xayah Rakan.
Yeah, the Rakan has been rising in priority recently. The TheShy also just gives you so much extra survivability up against a very tough-to-play ThunderTalk composition. At the same time, it's a lot of dashes that the Taliyah would really like to make the most of if you do grab yourself something like the Rakan. Honestly, we've got a lot of these best-in-class supports still available, and the Alistar here would also be good in shutting down the possibility of a Rel being picked up here for ThunderTalk. So I think this is going to be the pickup right here. I feel like Leona or something like that probably going to be the pickup for ThunderTalk, unless you want to go Enchanter. You do have enough tanks that you can potentially go for something a little bit less of the tank engage support option. Maybe they grab the Rakan. Okay, this would be interesting. Works well with the Kai'Sa in terms of the full dive potential. At the same time, a little bit squishy into a lot of damage from IG.
I was about to say, recently this week, a lot of the answers to Alistar have actually been Nautilus, and even though I'm not a support expert, I'm not a bot lane expert, so I can't outright say that, oh yes, this means that Nautilus is a direct counter to Alistar. I'm not sure if that's the case, but based on what I'm seeing and how some of these Nautiluses are playing out dives, 2v2s, there is solid interactions that you can go for and understand if the Alistar engages, either you can hook onto him, intercept the headbutt, delay the pulverized combo from coming out, you both proc Aftershock, and then boom, it's like an even trade. Or if the Alistar engages on your AD carry, the Nautilus can always threaten the other marksman and just keep him there. And we've seen many spectacular Nautilus outplays. Shout out Jiejie from FPX, who probably put on one of the best Nautilus games I've ever seen. There is potential, and even though a lot of people will meme the Nautilus as like, yeah, you know, just standard support, do your job, you point and click, ultimate. Don't sleep on it. There has legitimately been some good outplays and good thought processes in trying to actually like make dives with the Alistar completely neutralized.
At the same time, I've also seen quite a lot of the Nautiluses just hook the Alistar to try start a fight. The Alistar really doesn't mind it too much in terms of, hey, I'm tanky, you've just pulled me a little bit closer in for me to get my combo off once you've blown all of your CC. If you use all of your CC right onto me, well then I'm doing my job right here as an Alistar. I don't think it's quite as direct a counter as something like the Alistar into Rel is, but like you said, there are some nice interactions, and if this game is going to be decided one way or the other, I really don't think it's straight up going to be the support pickups. There's far too many interesting champions in this game for that to really be the case.
Alright, well, let's see how it all plays out. IG taking against ThunderTalk Gaming on the Rift. Let's see you in Game 1.
It's so hype. What can we see here? What can we see here from IG? They're coming off of the back of the biggest victory that they've had in the split so far. ThunderTalk, they could really use a win.
ThunderTalk already getting aggressive level 1. Just using the power of a lot of the synergies these champions have together for that first level of the game, but Meiko looming on over to the right side. And a reminder, this is Meiko's 1,000th game today in the LPL.
That's
crazy. That is insane. Like, it just, for any who was tuning into the LPL for the first time this season or recently and may not know, you know, the long history of Meiko, I mean, this guy was with EDG for years. Probably one of the longest stints any LPL player has been with an organization before eventually going over to, I want to say, Top Esports last year, and then coming over to IG this year. But Meiko, responsible for being a part of that team that gave LPL its 3rd world title with EDG in 2021. A lot of people, when, you know, they look at LPL and they look at LCK and go, oh yeah, okay, like Faker is the franchise player for T1. Well, Meiko was the franchise player for EDG. No other LPL player has had a stint that long.
No, he was with them for 9 years. 9 full years with one team is crazy. Most players are not lucky enough to have a 9-year-long career. 9 years with one team was brilliant to see, and congratulations to him on that 1,000th game right here. He's playing on a very strong IG squad at the moment, a squad that just came off the back of that Top Esports win, of which he was a big part of it, was really good on a lot of these engaged support champions, things like the Alistar. See what we can do in this game. Obviously taking a big chunk of health at the moment, as you do. Alistar very weak during the level 1, but they've managed to get through that. They haven't had to blow any flashes, any barriers, so they're going to be pretty happy with the way this bot lane has gone, at least for the first couple of minutes.
Definitely was expecting IG to try and set themselves up with a bot lane duo that would have a little bit more pushing power, but already the troublesome against 1xN and Feathers, Kai'Sa and Nautilus is proving to be a little bit more difficult than IG had in store for them. Because one of the things I wanted to outline is IG with a Xin Zhao into the likes of Skarner. If you have winning lanes, there's a chance that you can try and really drive in a lot of pressure into slowing down the Skarner, trying to give yourself that big snowball advantage, being able to play for grubs early on. Doesn't really seem like that is in the cards, at least on the bottom side of the map.
For the minute, it's just going to be a lot of pressure going down from 1xN and Feather. 1xN, we've usually run a head-to-head graphic for him. It would have been an interesting one today, but actually, 1xN really hasn't been able to step up in the same way for ThunderTalk recently. We'll see if he's able to do so on the Kai'Sa. This is definitely his kind of champion. Actually, we might be getting a gank mid lane right now. No, okay,
Yeah,
just gonna be
Jiejie.
going past. Yeah, he was walking up into lane. I was like, do you want to go for this straight away? It would be great to see. A lot of Xin Zhaos recently have been playing the game a little bit slower, oftentimes because you're into things like TheShy, who can just out-gank you a little bit. Hang on a second. There's a lot of damage going down. Beichuan is here.
As long as Feather's got to dodge that Blade Caller, but he steps on forward,
Ooh.
threatening with the Dredge line, and Gala forced to burn both Summoner spells.
Alright, Beichuan immediately going to be able to use a gank very effectively. Gala losing both summoner spells right now. Meiko also going to be using that ignite. So you've got quite a lot of summoners missing down in this bottom lane. ThunderTalk going to want to keep this pressure up as much as possible. Could open them up to a gank from Jiejie, so they're going to have to be careful to be respectful of that. But with all of the pressure right now going on in the bottom lane, this is a great way either for Beichuan to get involved in this lane, or to say, hey, I don't have to worry about this too much. I can now go play around elsewhere. And the grubs specifically, they've been such an important factor in teams winning or losing games recently.
Yeah, I mean, there have been times where a team gets the first 3 grubs, and then something goes wrong for the enemy team trying to contest for the second round of grubs, and suddenly the other team has 6 grubs, and we don't see any more fighting for the mid game, but just towers slowly depleting across the map, and that's where the gold acceleration has happened, and both teams definitely want to avoid that today.
Exactly, that's why I think getting first set of grubs is so important, right? Because it means you can choose for the next set. Do you want to go play around them? If something does go wrong for you, then it's not such a big deal. 3 for 3 isn't an issue. And for a team like IG right here, with something like the Scion and the Azir, those champions love to sit on a side lane before teleporting into team fights. With 6 grubs, they could be incredibly strong. For the minute though, 20 seconds until the grub spawns, and we're going to have a little bit of fighting potentially around this Drake. It's started up already by ThunderTalk, but they're getting a bit surrounded at this point by IG.
Yeah, they have to really rely on SeTab's little choke that he is holding.
Oh, Beichuan, okay.
As an escape route. Meiko's trying to threaten him, but he's only got CC. Gala finally arrives to the party. 800 on the dragon. Beichuan flashes because he knows they were about to steal it just from the back of an 80 carry. But without a flash, Beichuan is open to get swamped by Rookie on the Emperor's Divide. And it's the first dragon going to ThunderTalk, but IG say, cool, we get 2 kills.
Yikes, you could see that one coming from a mile away. ThunderTalk could really index into getting themselves this Drake, and the positioning just left them so out of sorts. You can see the recognition from Beichuan where he tries to turn it around, tries to go get a kill onto Jiejie potentially, but you just don't have the damage at this point in the game. You highlighted it brilliantly during the draft phase, right? This champion, the Skarner, a lot of nerfs recently, a lot less skirmishing power than he had previously, and they end up losing out quite a lot. Now, straight onto the grubs goes Jiejie. He's going to be able to pick up at least the first one, but Beichuan and Feather are in the area.
Yeah, Beichuan now has Smite over Jiejie, and with the strength of his support, being able to make his way here. Rookie tries to face check, and even though he's not in danger of dying to a Nautilus support that is only level 4 versus level 6 Azir. Hang on. What about a Scion that tries to join the party, but Hoya blocks it. Beichuan throwing and pinning Jiejie into the wall. But remember,
flash.
This is a Scorpion with no flash, and he's got nowhere to go. Jiejie just merely interrupting his escape route, and TheShy is gifted a kill.
Ah, that's not good. This is now going to be 3 kills going over to IG. They're going to pick up the Feat of Warfare already. And ThunderTalk, they're trying way too hard to fight for these objectives and just not recognizing that their composition isn't online yet. We'll have a flashback all the way to this Drake fight originally, and you can see, just looking at the map, completely and utterly surrounded are ThunderTalk, and because of that, you're taking damage on both fronts. Beichuan has to flash back to be able to go get the Drake. But once you put yourself in this bad spot, it's just going to be almost impossible to play out this team fight, and indeed, they do end up losing all of those kills, and then again, they fight too hard around the grubs and give more over.
You know how I said IG had slightly better tools early on? Obviously, there's like scaling elements in Azir and Sion, but all I have to look at is Xin Zhao versus Skarner.
Yeah.
Pre-level 6, right? And as we both called it out, you don't have Flash. So you don't have the luxury of getting too greedy, trying to, you know, force too many grubs away, because yes, Beichuan was successful in taking 2 away from IG and preventing the doomsday scenario of, you know, 5 grubs, 6 grubs away from IG, but you have now given over nearly a 2,000 gold advantage, kind of for free.
Oh, what?
Now they're maybe jumping onto Meiko. He still has a flash, so he's just biding his time until he has to flash over the wall. But Jiejie throws out the Crescent Guard, but now the Crescent Guard has run out.
Yeah.
And maybe he is cooked. And you know what? I might have just cast a curse at IG, and for that, I apologize.
Yeah, I was surprised, actually, by how hard ThunderTalk were going for that play. I thought it was going to be very unlikely to pick up the kill onto the Alistar, as you recognized Flash available to him. But all of a sudden, Jiejie decides to get involved, pops that Crescent Guard way too early, and as a flashless Xin Zhao, once you're pinned up against that wall, there's really no way that he was going to be able to get out of that one. ThunderTalk, they get that kill back. It does go over to Beichuan, not exactly the ideal. I think I would have preferred either SeTab or 1xN to be able to pick up that gold, but it's still going to be something for this Skarner. Get him towards that Heartsteel a little bit quicker, become that tanky menace that you really need him to be. And it is something. It's a way back into this game here for ThunderTalk. They are down by about 700 gold. Really not too much at this point into the game. Minute until the next set of grubs. Minute until the next Drake. Those two are going to be spawning at the exact same time. And with 2 grubs already picked up for ThunderTalk, they're in the slightly freer position for picking which they want.
Yeah, I was definitely operating under the presumption that IG were about to hit 1 item power spikes before the second dragon of the game and the second grubs rotation. Oh
no.
Did you see that sidestep by Jiejie to not give Hoya any more distance on the public execution? Cleanly played by the jungler of IG.
Really nice little fancy footwork, nice mechanics to be able to avoid that one, and Hoya gonna go down as well. That's now 2 kills right here for TheShy, someone who we would usually talk a lot about, but on this side I'm gonna have a slightly quieter early game. It's about that late game power spike where he's got all of the health stacks, just an immovable object, and to be honest, into this composition right here from ThunderTalk, it's only really a full multi-round combo from SeTab or 1xN building quite a lot of aggressive anti-tank items that's really going to be threatening TheShy. If we get late enough into this game, it kind of feels like ThunderTalk are going to run out of damage to be able to deal with him.
Yeah, Ambessa's not necessarily known as a tank shredder. I don't think Ambessa would die to a tank, though. Once you get enough items, you have enough CDR and Omnivamp that you can sustain through it, but yeah, that will be a reliable front line for the side of IG, and because you already have an Alistar and a pseudo front line in the Xin Zhao with the Crescent Guard, you know, this is definitely the closest to a team fighting composition we have gotten from IG in quite some time, especially since they are one of the teams that likes to experiment with Shy's picks. Shout out to the Nidalee top. Maybe we'll see it in game 2, who knows. But right now, it's all about that second dragon and the second round of grubs.
And they both have spawned up right now. Once again, ThunderTalk, they're going to get themselves around this Drake pit a lot quicker than IG. Last time it put them into a pretty bad spot, but you do now have yourself that first item completed onto Beichuan. He's going to be a lot tankier to be able to try step up into the situation, but it's a lot of components on the rest of the members of ThunderTalk. IG, they've got most of their first items completed. They're in a significantly stronger spot.
Good chunk by Rookie, but he flashes forward and calls SeTab's bluff, getting the Talia flash as well. It's ult out from Rookie, so no more Emperor's Divide available. SeTab still has the Weaver's Wall available, but IG have bullied their way back into the river.
And right now, ThunderTalk, you can see they still want to go in. Beichuan stepping up very aggressively right now. SeTab does have the ulti available to potentially try to split this fight, but goes wide.
Oh, Beichuan flash forward, but he got CC'd! He was looking for an impale, but he has no time to set it up. And once again, the ThunderTalk jungler costing his team a play around the objective.
Dang, exactly what you don't want to have happen right here. And again, 11 seconds onto this death time, and Jiejie can potentially go up for the rest of these grubs if he wants to try to initiate the same play that we saw the previous time around. It's just really unfortunate, but you can see the vision set up right here around this bottom side of the map. There's just so much more vision for IG. They knew what was happening. Now there's an attempt at a play on the other side. TheShy gonna get jumped.
I don't think he has enough mana for the unstoppable onslaught. He's just gonna accept his fate. Good setup by SeTab to help Hoya with the 2v1. Bot lane, what is happening? They are pushing 1xN and Feather beyond the first tier 1. Now Jiejie has to be careful about Beichuan. Still has the Impale. He never casted it in the previous fight. Good punt away by Meiko, but the Death Charge hits both of them. Jiejie popping the Crescent Guard, trying to block as much damage as he can. Flashes away from the Dredge line. Good use of the Summoner spell. Hoya here, looking for the public execution angle. Hits Meiko.
Oh, no!
The Impale is just too short. And ThunderTalk invested so much for that play and get nothing.
Oh, no. Oh,
Wait,
maybe they still get
rewarded.
something, Gala.
There's still a Feather Sword from Gala. He pops it, but he's got 3 members on him. He's not escaping that one. It's saved for ThunderTalk. Gala being a little too greedy on the base, thinking that no way the ThunderTalk were going to continue going for more.
Yeah, but ThunderTalk, if you think that, you haven't watched them play. This team just goes in and in and in. They do not know the meaning of chilling out, and they at least managed to pick themselves up something for the play. They got a kill top lane, they get a kill for themselves bot lane, but this play just missing so much from ThunderTalk. I don't think Feather actually managed to hit a single one of the hooks in that play. Obviously, the last one was flashed away from, but even before that point, we're going to go back quite far, though. This is the point at which Beichuan died just before that Drake, and he's just going in by himself. Yes, you've got that Heartsteel completed, but you haven't stacked it up any. You're not particularly tanky as the Skarner right now. This is just way too greedy right here. You cannot be going for this one, especially not the point at which Meiko has gone back to base. Yeah, you have to just go sit under your tier 2 tower and recall.
Thankfully for IG, they're the first ones to the Grub Pit. It doesn't seem like ThunderTalk will go for any contest whatsoever. I mean, Beichuan has a smite, but Jiejie has been able to preserve it because he's got Gala and Meiko assisting him here on the objective take. 4 grubs total over to IG, being able to take the second dragon as well, as we saw from the previous play. And the objective game is pretty much evened up, slightly favoring IG. Neither team has taken the first turret of the game, but with 4 grubs on your side, definitely favoring IG on the first ones being able to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. All of the grubs they've got available to themselves, plus the fact that they just need to get one more Drake or the Herald or first tower to get these feats of strength completed. Actually, they've put themselves into a pretty good spot at the beginning of this game. Now, what we saw from them up against Top Esports was very much that they were losing early games and then fighting back for themselves by just over 1,000 gold. Can they hold on to this lead? Can they execute this one well? Because they've got the kind of composition that can play really well into the late game. Like you said, between the Azir and the Sion, that's a lot of late game scaling you can think about, and Jiejie's done a good job of bridging this early game gap for them.
Yeah. It's definitely what you're hoping for as an IG fan, knowing that IG have struggled against some of the top teams, but still being able to pull out a comeback. Now that you have the advantage against a team like ThunderTalk, for the sake of consistency and for your squad's overall progression, they gotta maintain it. They locked down Meiko, but he still has an ultimate, and the Impale is broken by the Unbreakable Will, but Hoya now lands the public execution, at least takes out the support of IG. TheShy is flanking SeTab and 1xN on the right side, but he's got no support. He's forced to flash away. 1xN just might run him down. The flash from Beichuan finds Jiejie, the Crescent Guard. He dashes away. Here comes Rookie. Go sleep. The Emperor's Defy pushes him right into Gala's waiting arms. The feathers rip SeTab and 1xN asunder. Beichuan's got no more damage dealers. He's got to run for it, but this Scorpion just might be bird food. As Gala, can he deny the other blast cone? Not going to happen. Beichuan should be able to escape from now. He's going to lead him into Hoya, and now both of these champions might just turn it around back on TheShy since Gala abandoned him. It's getting close, but the shields from Hoya, and there's just not much damage left in the tank for Shy. He's gonna try to run for it. Meiko flashing forward. He wasn't coming back, but the slow by the Skarner W. This is a clown show, bro. Oh my goodness.
There's feats just picked up in and amongst everything else. Meiko actually going to keep stepping forwards right here. Gala doing some decent damage to this tower as well.
Meiko,
coming in. Hang on. He's got no flash now.
Oh, goodness. Feather, does he have another dredge line in him?
Hook? Where's the hook?
Oh, sidestepped.
Raafaa, what was that?
I'm still processing it.
We've
first
got a
game
Drake
jitters,
up
baby.
now.
I
Yeah,
don't know
potentially
what else to
first
say.
game jitters. You know, IG, they just had to play out the craziest game versus top esports. Have a look, though, at how many big ultis are used in an attempt to kill this Alistar, right? The Impale immediately gets unbreakable away from. Then you get the public execution going in. Finally, you get the cow. But at that point, you've blown your two biggest ultis, really, just straight onto a champion that, hey, likes it when you use all of their damage into them. And then it's this. It's this right here that you're going to see from Rookie, where he manages to get this huge Shurima shuffle, pushing everybody back over. The fact that SeTab just about gets caught by that is crazy. Puts them into the bounce house. And it makes that team fight very easy for Jiejie to be able to win. There's a little bit of Clown Fiesta on the back end of this one. TheShy stepping up and getting abandoned by Gala. If Gala follows him there, they probably do actually get a couple more kills onto ThunderTalk. Instead, that one ends up being a little bit of a mistake.
There's a lot of fumbling and a lot of stumbling, but you know what? Rookie is having a very clean game. And if you're an IG fan, that is one thing you can at least be grateful for. That your mid laner is putting in that work. 3-0-4 on the Azir. Especially, you know, we know that Rookie hasn't always had clean Azir games this season so far. Shout out to the NIP series back in Split 1. But you know what? Rookie has evolved past that shadow, past those demons. He's now back, trying to strive for a cleaner form in this Split 2.
And now is going to complete that Nash's Tooth, so is in a very strong spot in this game. 2 items completed onto the main carriers of Rookie and Gala. So they're going to be able to carry this one out just as long as they get enough frontline protection, something this composition should be able to do pretty well for them. Going to be able to grab themselves this Rift Herald as well, so the objectives really have been in IG's favour. The kills too, it's turned into about 3k gold lead right here for IG. Might expand even further with this top lane tier 1 falling. And for the minute, ThunderTalk, they really need to find a way to get back into this game. They're down in terms of gold pretty much across the board. It's just top lane where they've got a small advantage. And as much as Hoya's looked okay in some of the matchups, it hasn't really been Hoya's split so far. Darkness.
Definitely
so
a tough
much darkness.
And Beichuan has to be one of the few to step up forward first. Meiko will greet him alongside TheShy. I think they briefly saw that it was 2k HP, but yep, Otacon ripped. Flowers uncontested by the rest of ThunderTalk, and that public execution did not land, and now Beichuan is all by himself with the Rookie. Maybe they can fight their way through the bot side, but TheShy is a giant wall, and Gala punishes all who try to pass through the wall. ThunderTalk have nowhere else left to go except backwards, and Jiejie will ensure that SeTab will fall as well.
Brilliant play right there from TheShy. Gets a double knock-up straight into the ulti combo and is able to just buy so much space, so much time. At the same time as that's happening, Beichuan's in the backline of that fight, attempting to get things done there, really isn't able to do so. And because the Rift Herald was still in the back pockets of the IG members, look at that, 4 of the grubs, going to mean tons of these mites helping rip through these towers. The gold lead has been busted wide open, 6k an advantage for IG, and they are just in control of the Rift right now.
7,000 gold ahead for IG. We'll take a look back at that replay once again.
Right here, Beichuan goes flying in, but it really is TheShy just buying space, buying time right here. It just is a brick wall, like you said, that nobody else, none of the actual damage dealers are able to step through. You see right there, he does the ulti knock-up combo and just buys enough space, enough time for the damage-dealing members of IG to get the kill onto Beichuan and then turn around and start hitting onto those main carries. A brilliant job in this game so far from TheShy. Obviously, we think of him as playing these wacky carry top laners. He's been playing the Nidalee a lot recently, but still, you can put this man on a tank and he will just buy you space, buy you time, and win you team fights.
Oh, now Rookie's looking for Beichuan. He tries to flash over the Impale, but it's equalized out by Rookie just casting the Seeker Stasis. ThunderTalk lose out in their jungler once again. Now have to defend a dive. Oh, goodness gracious. SeTab just lost 3/4 of his HP. 1xN under fire. Meiko and Jiejie flashing forward. Looking for 1xN, but he pops the barrier. But TheShy wants a piece of that goal. The guys are two. Meanwhile, IG on the left side, they're just killing ThunderTalk members left, right, and center. And Bloxer, I think it would be disingenuous to say that this game is not over, but it's pretty hard to say so, because it is still at 7,000 gold lead, you know, to their credit. You know, it's not been ballooned quite as much, but I mean, come on. The base is all yet to be completely ruined.
Yeah, 606, 3,700 gold lead right here. 3 items completed onto Rookie. This game, it isn't done. There is still a chance for ThunderTalk to be able to get back into this one, but they've got the kind of composition that was really going to be spiking at this point once they've got these 2 items completed. But they're so behind the curve at this point that IG, they've got beyond that point. They're going to be more than happy to keep taking these team fights. They've got the unbreakable wall between Meiko and TheShy, and the damage dealers are just shredding. You can see here, this just has not been the game so far from Beichuan. Really nice bot back over the wall, and the golden 2 to stop the Impale from being able to do anything. Beichuan has been caught again and again and again, and this Skarner has been one of his best picks. Feather also now just gonna fall. It's not done until the Nexus explodes, but game number 2 is gonna be a little bit of a change-up we'd have to hope for from ThunderTalk.
Now, historically speaking, Bloxer, the times that we have seen IG get super close to closing the game out, one of 2 things happens. One, they approach the Nexus, they siege, and then we see TheShy have a happy gaming moment.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's a 4v5 against IG, or in favor of the enemy team against IG. And then maybe there's a chance. And IG have lost a game because of that in the past. We're going to see if history does repeat itself, or if they will progress past that point. Good public execution, but a better defense by the rest of IG to defend their backline from getting swarmed by ThunderTalk's divers. And it's just no use whatsoever. Every attempt by ThunderTalk is not effective, and IG will take the first game in this series.
Yeah, really quickly as well, pre-Baron. This is a 24-minute game, just about going to be 25 seconds once they're actually able to take all of this down. SeTab gonna slow things down just a little bit, but he is well and truly dead right here. Knocked up, taken down. That's gonna be the ace to clean this game out. 25-minute game here from IG in game number 1. ThunderTalk summarily dismantled.
It was scrappy. It was messy.
Yeah.
It was a little weird sometimes, but you know what? IG, in the end, an overall clean game and very clinical when you're looking at Rookie specifically, being able to be the shining constant on this IG super squad. And thankfully for them, now moving up 1-0 in the series, and a effectively fast win at that, which now puts not only us in a position to believe that IG should sweep the series, you know, even more, but also it allows us to move one step closer to our 3rd and final series of the day.
Exactly. That 3rd and final series is going to be so hype. Of course, we've got at least one more game between these 2. And what a game it was from IG yesterday. It was a real slog for them to be able to get through that top esports series. They were able to pick up the win. Really impressive. ThunderTalk is the kind of team we wanted to see them completely dismantle, and they were able to. I think this is the best kind of look that we've seen from IG in terms of the drafts, where they've got tanky top support, an engaged jungler, and then just plenty of damage that can scale well into the late game through Rookie and Gala. Gala had a pretty bad time early on in that game, but was really able to turn it around.
Yeah, once he had TheShy in front of him, he did his job. He was laying down the feathers. There was a zone where ThunderTalk, if they crossed it, they were in deep doo-doo, you know, to be polite.
Yes, they were.
If one might say. And it was best exemplified on that topside Otacon fight. Literally, even though I think TheShy was maybe not even 2 items fully complete yet, I think 1.5, he was so damn tanky, and because the rest of ThunderTalk had been slowed down because there were so many skirmishes forced by them throughout the early mid game, that they didn't have they didn't have the money or the items to be able to start dealing with a 3,000 plus HP Scion at that point, right? And
No, they
and if you're trying to burn him down, and suddenly there's all these feathers starting to stack up behind you, you're like, guys, we need to get out before Gala rips us a new one. And with the blade collar, then yeah, so really clean stuff by IG.
Yeah, it felt like IG, they were in control of this game from the very beginning to the very end. That's going to be reflected right here in the goal graph. You can see the amount of damage that was done. Actually, TheShy still dealing crazy amounts of damage right here. Is able to almost do as much as SeTab was. And SeTab, 1XM, neither of these two carries were really able to just do their thing. And it started from the beginning of the game where ThunderTalk over-index into try and get themselves that first Drake, get themselves surrounded, caught out, give a couple of kills over. And from that moment on, they were really just so far behind. But even beyond that, it was Beichuan, I think, who was just having the roughest of the games. He was trying to go in constantly, as you have to do on the Skarner, but was never able to do it in the laning phase, so he wasn't able to get himself an advantage at that point, and then was just too far behind, wasn't going to be tanky enough, was trying to get those impales off, never landed a multi-man impale, which is what ThunderTalk would have needed to be able to play this game through, and it meant that once he died, there wasn't really the rest of the front line needed to stand up to IG.
Yeah, this guy was trying to play Skarner like he was Pantheon. Or Lee Sin, where he was trying to be super aggressive early, trying to look for very, very early dives and ways to snowball his bot lane, which I think is okay, but just the inability to adapt when the play was no longer looking good, I think hindered ThunderTalk and damaged their chances in this game far more than had they just, you know, kind of handshook the early stages of the game and just said, okay, you know what? They're threatening us on this objective. We're going to take what we can, and we're just going to back off, you know?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Yeah.
They needed to... I don't want to say ThunderTalk need to chill out a little bit, because that's so counter to the way that they played. That would really take away from the identity of this team.
Right.
But the decision-making on when they're going in isn't necessarily the best. Whoever it is that's doing the shot calling was doing so well. This play was so sexy. Just have a look at that one in the cinematic view. That was gorgeous. Whoever was making the calls for ThunderTalk in Split 1 felt like they knew exactly what they were doing, because they were constantly going in, full committing to fights that were really good for them. It's now not working. They're now going very aggressive on fights that clearly were not going to be winners from the very start. That first Drake fight is what I'm specifically thinking about in this game, but it's been shown throughout this entirety of the Split 2 so far. So they just need to change up a little bit of that shot calling. Whoever's making those calls, maybe change who it is, or just rethink what is a good winning team fight for them.
Yeah, and while we don't necessarily tout Beichuan as like one of the best junglers in the LPL, he definitely looked a lot more nervous than he normally does. I feel like one of the strengths of ThunderTalk when they're playing well, not necessarily, you know the marks of a top team, but when they're playing well, because we have seen it before, is he and Feather are very synced up on which targets to prioritize and when they're lining up the engages. They were very disconnected the entire game. Beichuan sometimes getting caught in Super Narnia while the rest of the team is getting pushed out by the enemy team. And so then it's just forcing Beichuan to like try and make these miracle plays to bail himself out. And when you overcommit to a decision like that, you know, I don't necessarily condone him for making those decisions, but he does look worse because of it, right?
Yes, exactly. It makes it look like he's the one throwing the game fully for the team when he's just the one trying very hard to get something done, try to make it into a victory for them. It's really unfortunate. It is the mark of this kind of champion, of this kind of play style, but it really was a dismantling here. I think something worth bearing in mind is that the game is slower this season with Atakan, with Baron being pushed back to 25 minutes. This game is pretty much a 20-minute game from previous seasons. Being able to win the game without having Baron even spawn is crazy fast for a game to happen. And ThunderTalk, after they lose in what was the fastest 1v1 we've seen, then to lose in one of the fastest games we've had in a while, really doesn't look good for them in this next one.
I mean, IG are trying to speed run it right now.
They want to go home.
They want to go back home. They want to, clock out. Maybe go for some early hot pot. I don't know what time it is over in China right now. I have to do some quick math, or maybe our producer would know off the top of her head. But disregarding time zone differences,
Rookie.
I mean, who else?
Yeah.
What a sexy game of Azir from Rookie, being able to show and live up to the standards that he has set for himself in Split 2. I know one of the interviews that featured him recently was him talking about him trying to refine his form and trying to challenge himself to play up to, you know, the standards that he used to be, you know, back in his prime. And he knows that he's not as good as he used to be relative to the strength of all the other mid laners in the LPL, but that has been his big focus, especially for Split 2. Glad to see that he is at least dialing it down, you know, against some of the less competitive teams, because he has to really be on his A game when he challenges, you know, the top dogs in the league.
Yeah, absolutely, and he looked brilliant yesterday as well, especially on the Azir they had in that game number 1 yesterday against Top Esports. He was a big part of why they were to overcome one of these better teams that we've got in the league, and now today also showing up in a big way. Hopefully this is him finding his footing, this is him getting comfortable in the meta at the moment. I think that the champions that are strong in the meta also does really suit him and what he likes to do, so it has just been nice to see him really getting himself back up to form. He's not reaching the same heights that he did in years past, but at least right now he is looking good.
Yep. Well, that's game 1 wrapped up in the books. We're gonna get ready for game 2 on the other side of this break, so we'll see y'all